Blue Maga, make America godly again. Blue Maga, make America godly again. Blue Maga is a call to stand up for Christian values, regardless of group or party affiliation. Democrats, Republicans, and all people who fear God and the Word of God. 1. Jesus and the Christian faith. 2. The Ten Commandments. 3. Biblical sexual orientation. 4. The sanctity of all life. 5. Laws that protect, not control. 6. Free speech. 7. MLK nonviolent protests. 8. Respecting the American flag. Remembering how Charlie Kirk was murdered for Christian values and what God has called you to do. He was a debater and a conservative activist, and he fulfilled his call. I am encouraging everyone to fulfill the unique calling God has placed within them. Keep the Kirk family and Turning Point USA in prayer. All of the apostles of Christ had to face martyrdom. As pastors and Christian leaders, we must prepare those to serve to be faithful in their testimony unto death, as Charlie was. The MLK protest, a model that we should use today. This is Brother Kevin with Blue Maga, and I want to share a very, very important part of my heart. I am not anti-protest. There's one thing I'm not is that I'm not anti-protest. I'm a preacher and a minister myself, and I used to do a lot of street preaching when I was much younger. And I want to tell you, that's a beautiful right that we have in the States. But I believe the Martin Luther King version of it, or that era of the 60s, you could see nonviolent protests in action in its purest form. I've even heard great ministers, renowned ministers, call Martin Luther King a man of violence because of the protests and all the violence that went on. However, in the nonviolent movement or the MLK movement, they weren't violent. It was how law enforcement and people reacted to the protests. And this is what I want to say against the modern era. This modern era says if you want to be heard, you've got to tear somebody's building down. You got to damage some property. You got to rebel against law enforcement and attack them. You got to kill them. You've got to make a display and slander people. You've got to call names. You got to cuss. But that was not what happened in the MLK protest movement. They really protested in a nonviolent manner, simply stating what they knew were their rights as Americans, and they stood up for it. I have a question for those of you who say that you are protesters, you're an activist. If you have to have a nasty attitude, and if you have to be cruel and mean and slanderous, I want to say your protest is wrong, simply because if something is right, you don't have to back it up with violence. You don't have to back it up with slander. You can back it up with truth. The one thing that we have in America is free speech, and protest is a good complement of free speech. But there's a way you do it. Remember in the last video, I said we have to be responsible with our free speech. This is probably a great example. When we're doing free speech in the form of protest, there is a way that you do it, and there's a way you don't do it. In the MLK protests, we see that people used a nonviolent approach to get their point across because they knew that what they were protesting and what they were saying and what they were letting to be known all around the nation was civil rights was correct. Civil rights for all, civil rights for African Americans is the way it's supposed to be. It was based on the Constitution. And that's why they had to turn the Three-Fifths Law. They had to use that because they had to make African Americans less than human in order to support or justify slavery. But actually, the regular Bill of Rights should have covered it before the 13th and 14th Amendment. So when the civil rights movement came to its climax, it just simply confronted it with raw truth. And I think it's very important to see that if you're standing for truth, people will hear you because truth has power. I tell you, I am very emotional when it comes to this because I was a young boy during this era. And even though I didn't understand all the things that went on, I am so grateful for that generation and for Dr. King and for all those who came through that. It's because of that that I have a lot of friends I call my brothers. Some of the closest people I know are my white counterparts. I don't believe in racism. I don't believe in that stuff because I have the experience of having brothers of all races, but particularly the white race, who will lay down their life for me right now. And I'm telling you, I'm very grateful that this helped break down those barriers because if it hadn't happened, I may not be speaking to many of you right now. So I just want to say, standing for truth has a lot of power and it's universal. You can't say that you're standing for truth if you have to be violent, if you have to hurt someone, if you have to try to change the laws in the books that are righteous just because you want what you want. Now remember, what you want could be good, but test it. And I can tell you how you can test something that's good. Watch what you do to get it across. In the MLK protests, they simply, put up, placards, put up posters, held them. They would do walks, they would do parades, but they simply said, do what is right, America. And guess what? America heard. And I want to say this to those of you who oppose President Trump. America made a statement. And I want to say that if something is true, if something is good, people will hear the truth. Well, not everybody, but I'm telling you, people will hear the truth. I still believe in America. I still believe that it's a good experiment. However, there are forces right now, forces intact right now that want to tear this nation apart by doing the opposite of the MLK protest and putting in violence and slander and making people subhuman and being absolutely self-righteous about what they believe in. Look, I'm a Christian. I believe that Jesus is the only way, but I don't have to make you a subhuman to push my narrative. I'm called to preach the gospel to every creature. I'm not called to attack you because you don't believe. I'm called to love you because you are my brother, you are my friend, whether you believe in what I believe or not. But I have enough confidence in truth to take it all the way and to be the same and of good character with a peaceful disposition, regardless of how you treat me. So I hope that you enjoy this segment because I think it's what we need to look at. Those of you who are in protest movements today, review the protests of the 60s and see if what I'm saying is not true. Well, God bless you, and I want to invite you back to another episode of Blue Maga.